Hello, my name is James Hillman and I'm a fashion consultant based here in London. Charlie Ross from Offset Warehouse has asked me to do this masterclass for you all. So hello and welcome. I hope you like it. Now, as I said, I'm a fashion consultant. So I work with so many different brands, from startups all the way to really big, well-known brands. And so that has given me, over the years, I'm not going to say how many years, but the bags probably prove how many years. It gives me a really good idea of how things work, because I work on so many collections and I develop so many collections for so many different brands, that I'm sort of in tune now with how it works and how dates should work. Now, I am going to be taking you through the whole process of concept all the way through to production and how it works. Now, it's really long-winded, but I've tried to break it down into 4 snippets, I suppose you would say. And these are, I've got them written down here. The design calendar, which I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk to you about key dates and how to arrange your calendar in the best possible way so you're organized. Organization is the most important thing. The second one is the design process. So how to build a brand, collate mood boards, develop a range, what is the best way of doing it, or the best way that I've found doing it, because there are many different ways of approaching this. The third one is going to be, how do you take that design and turn it into a reality, into samples? And so I'm going to go through the whole process of that. And then the final one is production. How do you set up a supply chain? Reserving production space. Do you work with local seamstresses or CMT factories or FOB factories, full service factories, shall we say? So the first one is the design calendar. Dun, dun, dun. Now, for me, this is really, really important to just get your dates down. For me in particular, I work with so many different brands and they all have slightly different critical paths. So the calendar, we call it a critical path because it's critical and it's a path that you need to follow, basically. And the first thing I jot down is the key trade shows that I go to. Now, the main one that I tend to go to is Premier Vision. Premier Vision happens in February and September. The dates don't tend to change. Actually, I'm going next week, so you sort of know when I'm doing this talk. Now, the thing about trade shows are, for me anyway, is they're really key for meeting new suppliers, finding out about new fabrics, because there's always new fabrics coming out, and new sustainable organic variations of yarns and fabrics. Even man-made fibers are becoming more sustainable with recycled polyesters and made out of Coke bottle, not just Coke bottles. I shouldn't really say Coke, but plastic bottles and things like that. Nike are even really pushing this, and Adidas are as well with their Parley shoe, which are made out of old fishing nets, which they've recycled and turned into yarns and things like that, which is pretty amazing. So when I go to a trade show, I remember the first time I went, I was 14 and was like, oh my God, what is this place? It's massive. So Premier Vision, as if you don't already know, is one of the biggest trade shows for materials in the world. And it's 3 days long, but if you wanted to go around and see every single mill, it will probably take you about 2 months. That's how many there are. It's just massive. Anyway, when I go, the first thing I do is I focus on what fabrics I need for each brand that I work with. So I don't know, whatever it is, you aim, and they're sectioned off. So you've got denim and jersey and fancy and lace and stuff and sports and all that sort of stuff. So I focus on that. Then the next stage is I focus on the countries, because you don't necessarily want to be getting, I don't know, a Japanese denim from Japan. So a denim from Japan. Because although it might be the best denim in the world, for me, it's too far away, and you don't want to be shipping stuff because, one, it's not sustainable to do that. It costs a hell of a lot of money to ship it over, and thirdly, you can find just as good a quality elsewhere closer to home, such as Europe, Middle East, Turkey, yeah, but that's still for me a little bit too far. I try and keep it as close to home as possible. UK, EU, the best. Now, focusing on those countries really helps you because it actually limits you again, and then you can really focus. So I like to focus on Italian, French, Romanian even sometimes, and Portuguese. They're the sort of the main sort of areas that main countries that I focus on in each fabric that I do. And I already because I've been going for so many years, I already had the mills that I work with, so I pre-arrange meetings with them at certain times, and I sort of plan a little map. So that's the first thing you should do when you go there, is go, right, countries, mark everything, and then make a little map for you to do, so you can actually sort of cut down your time considerably. So that covers that then in regards to the trade shows. There's also other trade shows which you can go to in the UK, especially in London, such as the London Textile Fair, London Textile Forum, or is it the Textile Forum, something like that. And Charlie even shows at some of these, and I would have a look at her mailing list to see, because I'm not plugging her per se, but as you guys already know, her fabrics are amazing, and I even use them as well because they are just outstanding, and you know, they're organic and certified and sustainable, and you know, this is the way that everyone should be going, and my policy is to try and be as sustainable as possible with my consultancy, and in everything I do actually. Now those dates should be jotted down, so research, have a look online, like trade shows and things like that, and jot them down, and if you can go to them, perfect. So put them down on your calendar. Now the whole process for concept all the way through to production, for me, I normally give myself about 9-10 months. It sounds like a lot of time, and you're like, well, how do you do both seasons? You do a lot of crossover. That's basically what it comes down to. Now I'll go into that later, but what you tend to do is you will focus on the end when you want to sell, and work backwards, because if you did it the other way around, it could just be how long is a piece of string, and it's pointless. So let's say we're doing autumn winter sales. The peak of sales tends to be the run up to December. January, yeah, fine, whatever, but let's say it starts in September and goes to December. That means that your product should be ready in the shops for August, September. And that means that you need to have production done before that. I normally give production 3 months, basically because you will want to do, well, mistakes will happen and delays will always happen. You have to always factor that in. So 3 months tends to be the best one. 8 weeks I normally give for production to do the full production. It doesn't really matter what size production order you're doing. It should be within 8 weeks. If you can get it done sooner, perfect, but it's not going to happen. Now that's for production. Fabrics and trims tends to be about 4 to 6 weeks. So in total, it's around about 3 months. So that's the first thing. So that, and ideally I would want product to be landed in the UK here, let's say in my studio, for August. Well, I say for August. I say that because August the factories are closed. So you'd want it to be shipped in July at the latest, in order to be landed in the UK for August. So working back from that, you're looking at April, June to start production. I would prefer to start a bit earlier because it gives you that leeway. Because if you're getting production done in July, the chances of you getting it out at the end of July before the factories close is very slim, because everyone is like all factories are rammed before they close. So that's really important. So the earlier you can do that, the better. Now, finished samples tend to, well, for autumn winter, need to be landed and done and sent to PR companies and promotional people and photo shoots and websites for content for January. So that gives them a good run up while to get orders in, to put on relevant people, for people to get excited, such as influencers, celebrities, whatever else. And it gives you that time to get the orders in regards to getting the production done. So it helps you in regards to knowing your production order size, because it fluctuates each season. Sometimes you want more, sometimes you want less, sometimes buyers would like to have a bigger order of one thing, so you can adjust accordingly. So January SMSs should be ready, plug that in. Now working backwards from that, sampling stage tends to be around about 3 months. So 3 months from January, so let's say end of January. You're looking at November time, October time tends to be the best time to start your sampling process. Basically, when you're doing this process, mistakes will happen, hence why 3 months is relevant, because you've got patterns to do, you want adjustments on the toiles to be made, you want to consider every detail, make adaptations, you want to get your sample lengths in of fabric for your sampling, you want to get the colors, the lab dips done so they're getting the colors right, print strike offs done, all that sort of stuff. So 3 months tends to be the best one. So from that, let's say October, then you work backwards again, and I plug in the date for technicals, which tends to be 1 week to 1 month. So that covers the whole of September. Then before that is the design and getting the range plan sorted. So that normally is around, I try and give myself a solid 4 weeks, 1 month, just because you really need to take that time to get everything perfect and think things through and to make it perfect. So 1 month, so that takes you through August, when the factories are closed anyway, so, whatever. It gives you time to sort of think and breathe and whatever else. And then before that, you have the concept. Concept, it normally has about 1 week, maybe a little bit more, 2 weeks. And the concept for me is really key in order to making your designing perfect. So developing the concept for the brand identity, for the collection's identity, for your understanding how you want things to potentially look, and all the different sort of pathways you want to try and explore in regards to a visual sense, and maybe doing a few sketches and things like that. So that brings you to July, and then you have the research. I tend to give myself 1 to 2 weeks again, because research for me is the foundation to anything and everything that you're going to be doing in the future. So what I mean by researching is market research. So looking at what's going on in the market, niches, maybe there's key pieces that you should bring into your brand and into your collections. Researching trends, researching colors, researching in regards to what concept you want to do for that season. This is all really, really important. So giving yourself that time is essential. And for every startup brand that I work with, I always say, you haven't started yet, so you have all the time in the world. And when you start selling or when you start doing production, you've got no time, because it's a constant cycle, and you're constantly battling against time. Time is your worst enemy, and you always want to be ahead of target, not delayed, because it screws you. For every day that you're delayed, it ends up at the end being a few days, a week, even in the ongoing process. And that tends to be the full process for that. And so it's around about a 10-month process in total. Now, what I will say is, well, what people then ask me is, how do you get spring summer done? Now, it requires crossover. So the easiest way of doing that is the easiest way of thinking is, once you've done the design and technical stages, which tends to be a few months, you should basically move that onto sampling and production. So it's almost like block one, move into block 2. Now, as the sampling's being done, you should be designing and developing your new season, and so looking at new fabrics and things like that. And what tends to happen is the trade shows tend to be aligned to that. So you've got the February and you've got the September, and that tends to be a really, really easy way of designing. So September tends to be autumn, spring, summer for the year after, and February tends to be autumn, winter. So you have the fabrics, and then you can start the design and development, and it goes like that. So that tends to be the best way. Now, people also ask me, whilst the calendar is being done, they sort of go, okay, production. Now, what is really important is for you to understand about stocks, and should you hold stock for production, and or like, how should it work? Now, basically, holding your own stock is a really good way when you're doing online sales, but you don't want to do too much. So what a lot of startup brands or small brands do is do pre-orders, and that helps you understand the size of the collection the size of the production, sorry, of your collection. Instead of going into it blindly and going, oh, I'm going to order 100 and not being able to sell them and be left with a load of stock, which is a nightmare. And you don't really ever want to go into sale. Sale is not a good term for the fashion industry, and you don't really make a huge amount of money on doing that. So that tends to be a really good way of understanding stock, is doing pre-orders, and it excites people as well, and it makes it feel more luxury. If you do hold stock, it actually, the plus side to it is, let's say you get an unexpected order in from a store. Now that's brilliant, because you can go, okay, yeah, I've got these, and these can be sent out to you very, very quickly. I always say in a month, just to give you that time, just in case. And so we can send it in a month, and they're like, oh, that's really quick, actually. You know, like normally it takes 2-3 months, whatever. And then that puts you in their good books, and then you can ship it out. And then the rest of the product you can sell online. So that tends to be a good way as well. So hopefully that is everything. Hopefully I've covered in as much detail as possible that process. Now, if you do have any questions, as I said, jot them down, and then we can do the question and answers at the end of this masterclass session. So yeah, I hope I've covered all bases, and I hope to see you again at the next masterclass, which is about the design process. How do you design? How do you create mood boards? And how do you ultimately create a collection drawn and done in a technical format? Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon. All right, take care. Bye bye.